Hello, this is Brian Cottrell with RecordingFreaks.com. I'm really excited today because one of my musical quests in life has been, what is the ultimate acoustic guitar to play in a rock and roll band? And I've been searching for this for years. One of the reasons I formed Recording Freaks is because of the difference between playing something in isolation in a music store and playing it in your studio at home, and how it fits into a full band mix. And so, for years I would go into a music store, play an acoustic guitar or an amp or whatever, but in this case, a guitar, and it would sound great in isolation. And I'd play, 10 acoustic guitars in that music store, and I'd go to 5 other music stores and play guitars there. And you pick out the best one of all those that sounded great in that music store, and you take it home, you record it. Now you've got a full band around it. You've got drums, bass, keyboards, maybe lead guitar, vocals. And how does it sound in the mix now? And a lot of times that guitar that sounded great in isolation by itself in a music store doesn't sound very good in the mix. Maybe it sounds kind of dull, or maybe it sounds kind of hollow. Maybe there's too much bass or not enough mids. Either way, that maybe that presence just isn't there. And so that's one of the main things I like to do, is play instruments in the mix, in a full band mix, to help you decide what really sounds good when you're playing it with a full band, whether that's in the studio or live. And so I have 3 major contenders here today. I have the Gibson J45. So this is the workhorse, and it's been around for a long time. It's played by a lot of folks like Jackson Browne, James Taylor, Bob Dylan, Elvis Costello, Bruce Springsteen, John Hyatt. It's got a mahogany back and sides, 24 3/4 scale, and the slope shoulder jumbo body. Sometimes you'll see folks playing a J50 instead of a J45. And then also today, I have the Martin 00028. This is played by Eric Clapton, Ry Cooder, Nick Drake. And sometimes you'll see the slightly longer scale OM28 played by John Mayer. This has a rosewood back and sides, 24.9 scale, slightly longer than the J45, and a smaller body. This is the smallest body of the 3 guitars that we're going to compare today. And then this is the Gibson J100, very similar to the J200. The J200 was played by the Everly Brothers, Pete Townsend, George Harrison, Jimmy Page, Bob Dylan. And the J100 just has less bling on it than the J200. Other than that, it's the same guitar. This one has a maple back like the J200. Maple back and sides, 25.5 scale, longest scale today, and a jumbo body. So we're going to play all of these guitars. And at times, we'll play them alone, but then also play them in a mix. And at times, that mix is going to be pretty dense. It'll be pretty loud and crowded. And why would I do that to where you can barely hear the acoustic guitar? And that's so that we can say, hey, when the whole band's really rocking and going after it, can you hear that at all? And what does it sound like? But, we'll also hear it in lighter mixes where you can really hear the acoustic guitar, and we'll just hear the guitar alone as well. You'll notice today there are no dreadnoughts here. I've played a lot of dreadnoughts and owned some dreadnoughts over the years. I'm just not a big fan of dreadnoughts for playing in a rock and roll band. They have a lot of bass, but to me that bass is often boomy and undefined, and that's not what I like in my recordings. If you love dreadnoughts and that's the guitar that you think is the best, I would recommend that you do your own comparison. So today for microphones, I'm using a small diaphragm condenser, Rode NT5, and also an AKG C414. I'll mic some in mono and some in stereo, with and without EQ, so that you can hear all those differences. The strings on all 3 guitars are Martin 8020 bronze, not phosphor bronze. I'm not a fan of the phosphor bronze. They, to me, have a brighter sound, and I'm trying to get more of a solid bottom end. So that's why I use the regular bronze. So you'll hear the J45 at the start, and then the Martin, and then the J100, and then you'll hear the J45 again in each sequence. I'm not trying to give the J45 more airtime. It's just this way you can hear every guitar against every other guitar in the mix to see how they sound. So let's get to it. Let's do this. All right, so now we've heard all the mixes. We've heard all these guitars by themselves and in a mix with a full band, and also in a crowded mix, a very dense crowded mix. I'm just going to talk about each of them a little bit. One thing that I thought through all of this is all these guitars sound fantastic. Like, all of these guitars are winners. You can't go wrong with one of these guitars. These are fantastic guitars. So the J45, that's the one that I've owned for a long time, played over the years. It was the best one that I had found up to now to be in a full rock and roll band mix. I thought it really excelled when the whole band was playing and everybody was loud, and it still has some magic way of kind of cutting through and sounding somewhat balanced. I think it has a little bit of a scratchy tone. I don't know if that's the right word to use. That's how I would describe the J45, but it just, I don't know, it's sort of like, you know, the punk rock acoustic guitar or something, in terms of, it's like it's got its own little distortion pedal that built in, and that gives it a little bit more cutting ability in a full band mix. The Martin 00028, beautiful guitar. One thing that's nice about it, if you don't like a big jumbo body that's sticking way out, it's a smaller body, and it's not as deep, and it's much easier to play, and it's a lot easier to play standing up when you've got a strap and the guitar's on you, and you don't have to reach over and, you know, reach around some big box on the front of you. I thought the Martin sounded great in the fingerpicking segments, and I thought it sounded great by itself. And while it sounded very good in the full band mix, I didn't think it sounded quite as good as the others. Now, in my ears, when I was listening to the mix, I felt like it had a strong presence in like the 200 to 400 hertz range, kind of an elevated frequency response in that lower to, you know, upper bass to lower mid range. But I put that on a spectrum analyzer, and I'll put that on the screen on a frequency analyzer here so you can see it compared to the J45. And actually that starts at down around 150 hertz, that extra boost that this body and top and everything gives it. So, you know, although that sounds great when you're playing it by itself, really in a mix, all of those upper bass region, bass frequencies that are coming off this guitar is not something that I want in my mix with, you know, I've already got bass, and I might have piano, and I might have other things going on in that region. So strong presence there, but I don't think helpful to the mix, but sounds great alone. Hey, it's almost like it's a folk guitar or something, right? And then we have the Gibson J100. I thought it did a fantastic job across the board. I do think it sounds a little bit prettier in the mix than the J45. You know, in terms of a very dense or crowded mix, I thought the J45 cut through a little bit better than the J100. But in those sequences that weren't quite as crowded, they were a little more open, or just the guitar by itself, I thought the J100 was prettier. So, you know, I may keep the J100 and keep it for the prettier stuff, and then use the J45 for the more dense rock and roll stuff. But when it's out in the open and you can hear it, I just think it has a little bit prettier sound than the J45. You definitely can't go wrong with the J100, the 00028, or the J45. These are all incredible classic guitars. But tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think of these guitars in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also you can check out my musician YouTube channel, Brian Cottrell. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.